This is Alberto. Alberto just submitted his design research to Kai. Alberto's paper was rejected because reviewers wanted a more natural environment rather than a lab setting.
Having the lab setting not only allows us to do more rapid prototyping, but also helps have a direct conversation and more natural and organic conversation with our users.
This is Raquel. Raquel also just submitted her design research to Kai. Raquel's paper was rejected because reviewers thought the autoethnographic method was too biased and not rigorous enough.
Didn't understand. They just really wanted to see something else methods-wise. They wanted a higher number of participants, they wanted a longitudinal study, they wanted more generalizability, they wanted...
Tired of reviews that seem to hold your work to inappropriate standards? Tired of your papers rejected because your design methods were critiqued as not rigorous enough? Try Formative Situations, a kind of evaluation that recognizes formative knowledge gained throughout earlier stages of the design process as a valid contribution to the Kai community.
Oh, shouldn't I only report on my design once it is fully fleshed?
No, that's actually not the only time there's useful things to say. Formative situations create spaces which allow you to share knowledge from and about your design process and mid-fidelity prototypes.
Don't I need to choose between a field deployment or a lab study?
No, somewhere in the middle between the two is actually encouraged.
But how is this empirical still?
Great question. We see empiricism as making observations in the world and adjusting to those observations. Flexible, and there's a broad range of what can be considered rigorous here.
Great, I'm on board. How do I put this to use in practice?
Glad you asked. Here are 5 criteria to help you when assessing your formative situation.
Formative situation should be well fitted to the research through design questions. Criteria for creation of the situation should be detailed and clear and guided by the design research questions. The formative situation should be clearly described and all those who engage with it experience something similar to allow the researchers to contextualize feedback received. It should draw upon related best practices. Clearly outline the design process and self-articulate the particular design phase of the prototype for the purposes of transparency, and detail how the chosen formative situation is of appropriate weight in comparison. Describe which method you adapted the situation from, if there are any. As a reviewer, do not assume each contribution is at the same stage of the design process. Be of appropriate weight in proportion to the provisionality of the prototype. The situation for study should match the provisionality design resolution of the artifact. For example, if a prototype needs extensive support, it may not yet be viable to bring to an into the wild situation. Allow the designer an appropriate position within the process. Formative situations can more fluidly involve the designer-researcher in contrast to the experimental paradigm where it is important to remove potential bias from the experimenter. In a formative situation, the researcher might adapt the situation in real time to adjust for emergent responses and reactions from the participants, clarify where needed, and/or babysit sometimes fragile prototypes. Allows participants an active role in the process. Formative situations can offer opportunity for resistance and discussion from prospective users, and it may be necessary as to understand the contours and rough edges of design. Great! Now you have what it takes to design a formative situation. Maybe you've already been doing it. We hope this set of criteria and paper will give people permission to both recognize and evaluate formative work. We want you to both give feedback and add on to this criteria based on your own experiences and research, as well as help us understand what other kind of formative work could be out there and broaden what knowledge is accepted within the HCI community.